Hello and welcome to this joint episode of Superhero Ethics and PandaVision. Today we are continuing our coverage of The Witcher Season 2, talking about episodes 5 and 6, with myself, Ashley Coffin, and Paul Hoppy. All that and more after a commercial break we have no control over. Welcome back. I'm Matthew, your host. As I said, I'm joined by Ashley and Paul. To both of you, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Good Yule, Krampus, did you get to air your grievances for Festivus? Did you get many fun new presents under the tree or at the sacrificial log what'd you call it? How you doing?
Great. Really good. It was a good holiday. How was yours?
Mine was good. I had planned on making a brisket for 25 people. The smoker that I'd gotten for Hanukkah shut off halfway through. So I woke up to find that the meat was not going to be ready in any amount of time. So I had to audible and made chili for 25 people, which I was pretty darn proud to be able to pull off. So, it all worked out.
Chili seems like a good audible meal, I guess.
Yeah. Having like that many beans and tomatoes on hand is not my partner always teases me about how much extra like food we have around the house. So being able to just cook for 25 people with what's in hand, got this.
We, I may have had a minor Festivus miracle, although that's pending some other stuff, so I won't talk about it. I did not air as many grievances as I had intended, but perhaps I'll do some of that today. And joyous Kwanzaa. It's the second day of Kwanzaa, I think.
Mm-hmm. We did get to chat about Matrix 4 a little bit, which did involve quite a lot of sharing of grievances.
There were some grievances shared, yes.
Did you guys
no
spoilers.
Like it?
Did you like it?
Did you watch it also?
I did.
Yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of it. I had some issues with some of it.
My review was it's a movie.
Yeah, I was like, I turned to, no spoilers, but I turned to my husband like an hour in and I was like, I can't give a fuck about what's happening right now.
Yeah,
I've been on my phone for the last hour.
Lee fell asleep. I turned the movie off halfway through. We came back 2 days later. She fell asleep again. I turned it off with 20 minutes left. It did nothing that made me angry. So I guess there's that.
Well, I liked the first movie, so that was just this again.
Yeah. Exactly.
I felt like after as bad as Reloaded and Revolutions were, I was glad that Lana Wachowski got to like finish the story more her way. But I'm happy to never see it again.
Did you watch Sense8? Did you watch her TV show on Netflix? I loved it.
Yeah, Mary
so many
loved
people hated it, and I really liked it. Did you recognize Wolfgang? I was like, Wolfgang!
So many actors from it. So many actors. All right,
sorry.
No.
Now let's talk about a series that did make us angry.
I also will say Don't Look Up is maybe one of the best movies I've seen in the last 10 years. Absolutely, people should see it. Definitely should talk about it.
We're watching it tonight.
Good. Yeah, we were 100% doing an ethics episode about it sometime soon. But first, let's go into the safe, happy world of witches and wizards and swords and beautiful people in beautiful outfits. So we watched episode 5 and 6. Let's start in the Festivus spirit with an airing of grievances. I think there's one or two scenes that some people might have had some strong feelings on.
I'm furious.
Talk to us.
I'm furious. I'm going to let Paul talk for me, but I don't see the point of killing the horse. I don't know why we did that. I just didn't care for it. And I'm like, why do we keep doing this with these animals? Like, who cares?
Yeah, and I think you nailed it at the end with the last two words, who cares? Like, ultimately, people just don't care about animals that much. Like, people care about specific animals that matter to them, that maybe have names. When writers are writing, they're often just like, ghosts. Ghosts can just be off screen because we don't have the effects budget to have them be on screen all the time, or, and it's hard in live action. And in fact, in that scene where Geralt gets Roach killed by just bringing him off to like some dragon to be bait, basically, which wasn't overtly the plan. I think it was more to use Ciri as bait, but like, what's Roach doing there? Like,
right.
I mean, to me, actually, I hated the scene, and I hate the way writers are. I think they were mostly just like, well, we kind of think they should be on foot for the next episode, and we want Ciri, give Ciri something to mourn, so this will be kind of upsetting and whatever, and then we can show, like, how much Geralt, like, cares for Roach by, like, how he kills him, when he's wounded, and doesn't even really give any thought to whether he could help him.
I fast forwarded that part.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to say it. I didn't know. So he actually, he has to like put him down?
He chooses to.
I didn't watch it. I was pissed.
Like, he chooses to, yeah. And there's, like, gurgling sounds as he likes... I'm like, isn't there a faster way to do this also? Like, is that really the most humane way to kill a horse? But it kind of actually, to me, was a nice, I'm making air quotes, parallel to Tissaya's way of caring for Yennefer, where she is completely abusive, puts her in danger repeatedly, and does actually have feelings for her. Like, she cares about her, like, in this, motherly way, but, like, treats her like shit and is extremely abusive. And I think this parallels a lot of the ways that humans treat animals in, like, writing stories, animation and stuff about, like, cute animals that are, like, nice characters, and, you got your cat or your dog or whatever, and maybe horses, and like, those really matter to you. But then, like, there's pigs who are, like, smarter than, like, a human 2-year-old, and, like, it's like, well, you can get imprisoned for life and then slaughtered for my lunch. Like, to me, it shows just how there's, I think, this disconnect in the way that humans think about some animals and then treat other animals, or even treat the ones that they supposedly care about. And to me, it's sort of like, I don't know, I was like, the main reason I wanted to do this episode is not to be like, you're a horrible person for doing this. Like, you're just a person, mm-hmm. And, like, maybe just give it a little bit of thought, and that's all. And, like, maybe that leads you to make some changes in life. Maybe it doesn't, but, like, for anything where, like, I feel really strongly about things being a certain way, I'm always just like, just give it some thought, and then, like, you make the choices you make. But, like, anyway, that's pretty much my piece. Like, I found it an extremely unpleasant scene to watch. It kind of made me hate the show. But then, there were other things that were good. And that's kind of like people. That's like shows.
Yeah, it was pointless.
Yeah, this is one of those things where definitely talking with you more has really, Paul, has helped me see these things in new ways. And I think it's funny because for me, when I see a scene like this, it's kind of two things coming together. One is the conversations that you and I have had about, and that I had with both of you and with a lot of other people as well, about the way that animal deaths are treated on screen, and that, like, animals themselves, it's like they're useful, and when they're cute and adorable, we like that, but we don't think about the terrible things that are done to them. And honestly, the conversation about fridging. And the whole idea of, like, a female character, or sometimes, this is not often considered part of fridging itself, but sometimes it's often a person of color's character, like, where that person dies, and their character really only existed to be a character prop, and then their death is to be an important character moment for this white male character.
Right. Like what's her name in the very first episode, whose name I can't remember because they killed her off so that Geralt would have these feelings about protecting princesses.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And, like, here's where I sort of come down on the fridging side of it, is that, like, and I know because you and I sometimes disagree on how far to take it, is I do think that, like, sometimes, like, one character dying is an important moment in someone else's story. And
absolutely.
I don't object to the idea that some characters are going to die, and that, like, to me, a story where all the characters are always going to make it to the end is not as interesting to me. Like, I want there to be stakes, etc. But I think one of the things that the fridging conversation really focuses on is the idea of, like, is that when it's so constant, and when there aren't enough, like, women characters who get to be fully embodied characters on their own, but they just are there to die for the male characters, growth or whatever it is. And I think I think I'm comfortable saying, like, kind of a similar thing happens here, is that, like, because you're right, Roach isn't a character, and folks might say, like, how can an animal be a character? Watch Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Avatar, Appa is just as much of a character in that as any of the others. And I think Roach had always been, the nature of it is that you didn't have a character who talked to him the way Aang, thank you. Aang could talk to Appa, but still, like, I mean, Roach was there, and Roach was someone we cared about, but was mostly just there to, like, be, Geralt's, friend. And I think at first there was something really important that they were trying to say about, like, this is a person who sees the evil in humanity and is also such an outsider that his horse is much more of a best friend to him than any other person can be.
Yeah.
And so, like, Yeah, I think it's just like if it was, I think his death could be an important part of Geralt's story. But the fact that it's the animal dying to be someone's story is told so often that makes it annoying. And just, yeah, it wasn't done in a... It felt like they couldn't decide if this was your useful mode of transportation is broken or your best friend is dead.
Right.
And I felt like because of that, they didn't give enough attention to that. And that's when it just felt like they're not honoring the kind of relationship that they wanted us to feel like it was happening here.
And it was just very random. Like, it was at the beginning of the episode, and it was like, what, a random rock dactyl. I don't know what the heck that thing was, but it just felt thrown in there and rushed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. To me, like, I'm not against characters ever dying. I think sometimes you mischaracterize my stance as being that, but it's like, I don't like when writers are writing to, it's like when a character's death like solves a problem for them as writers. And when something feels very contrived, or they're just like, we want to make you feel something, so we're gonna kill this kid, you know. When I've seen people say, well, the point of art or the point of writing is to make you feel something, and I'm like, I don't think that's the point. I think that's a thing you can do with writing. That's a thing you can do with art. It's not the only thing you can do. And to say, like, that's the point, I think is absurd. If you say that's the point of my writing, fine. You know, that can be true. But I think you make a lot of good points in that it's the frequency of such things, right? Like when particular types of characters, whether, you know, they're female or, you know, people of color or aliens or robots or animals, like, and it's just like, well, these, you know, one of our first episodes was titled like, who can we kill, right? And it was like basically like whose lives basically don't matter in fiction. And, you know, this just kind of comes down to that for me. And Ashley, I agree. It felt very random. And honestly, when it was happening, I was like, oh, are they killing off the horse? And like, I felt like I couldn't actually see what was happening. And that's probably because of animal rights activists. Because, like, you know, if you try and have the horse actually physically do whatever it is that's going to kill the horse, you might endanger the horse more than you already do by putting them in your movie. So, like, I thought that was also just, like, an interesting little, like, okay, so they can't show it the way they want to show it anyway, you know? And it just felt so, like, it felt like the first episode of this series did to me. You know, I felt like
And why wouldn't Ciri have somebody to mourn? She lost
so many people. Exactly. Like, you didn't need to add this, and it just felt to me, I honestly felt like it was primarily about transportation. And I was like, fuck you, writers. Yeah. So
I think for me, one of the things that bothered me is, and maybe I was holding on to this more than the writers were telling me I should. Like I said, I really liked the idea that Roach was the one person Geralt could relate to the most. Yeah. And now, like, yes, he had Jaskier, his bard, for a while, but he never really let down his walls with him. He never really let down his walls with Yennefer. He did let down his walls with Yennefer, then they went back up, etc. With Ciri now, he is starting to form a real relationship. And I really didn't like the idea of now he doesn't need Roach. Right. You know, now he has someone else, both in terms of his character, but also for the writers. Like, now he has someone else to narrate to instead of to the horse. And so, yeah, it all felt wrong.
Maybe devil's advocate here. Now he's completely alone. When we're going into this next episode, he lost Ciri, he lost Yen, and now he lost the horse. Right. So he's completely alone.
Well, and so that to me is like just the ultimate, just like but writers like, meddling, writing to that point. We want to make him alone, so we're going to kill them. We're going to kill them. Oh, we'll have her taken off here. You know, it feels, it's that kind of feeling of contrivance to me. And I do think him feeling totally alone at that point is relevant. You know, I think that's a thing, but just the way it felt really kind of stupid and random. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like,
he's still alone.
Yeah, and there could even be ways of writing basically what happened differently and not having it feel quite as ridiculous, I think.
Especially because I feel like if you had, for some reason, like, tuned in late, you know, and you walked in 15 minutes into the episode, you might ask yourself, why are they walking? Right. But there's nothing about the way his character's portrayed that tells you, I am now looking at a man who's just lost his best friend of 15 years, or however many years it was, you know? And I think that was, like, it's one of those things where, again, like, I think there's ways to make that an appropriate part of the story. but part of that would be like you have to see him being fundamentally shook and
Right.
changed, and we didn't get that. I think one of the things that I also picked up on, and I know I kind of had a fun conversation with you two because I kept talking about this when I thought it happened, but you two had finished the episode already.
Oh, it was so hard not to spoil that.
I know.
The way that it was shot, I wonder if you two felt this in the moment, is you get a scene of Vesemir fighting Vesemir, his mentor figure, and it looks like Vesemir takes a very serious blow, and I thought Vesemir was dead. And then Roach was going to die right afterwards. And I was just like, later in the episode, we find out Vesemir's still alive, which is why you two, I was like, why aren't you getting upset with me about that both of them died at the same time?
I thought about Paul in that scene. Because I thought he was dead too. I was like, uh-oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think they'll kill him off in this episode. It'll probably be a couple more episodes. But yeah, they filmed it specifically. Is he dead? I don't know. Will Frodo come out of the water, or will he drown? Like,
yeah. So I just thought it was just so weird to have that, and then Roach's death, in like pretty much the next scene, or like the next 2 or 3 scenes. All right. So putting that part aside, obviously we had some real issues with that. What else did you think, or like general thoughts on these 2 episodes?
I actually liked a lot.
Yeah.
I did. I got to, I was very happy that everybody got to meet up again. I've been talking about it every episode, and I just, couldn't wait for it. I'm upset at Yen. Everybody seems to be growing except for Yen. They're being more open. Everybody's telling the truth. We have Ciri finally talking to Geralt about what she did with the 4 boys, and, them finally having, these breakthroughs. But I just feel like Yen, she just keeps doing the same thing, just trying to take care of everything on her own.
Yeah. I did really love when she basically figured out a way to, without magic, cast Fireball. The whole, she was drinking like crazy, and then just, because I was like, that to me was such a beautiful, she spent the last couple episodes thinking that she's useless because she doesn't have magic. And so here she figured, it wasn't just that she, attacked, she had this whole plan of I'm going to have alcohol in my mouth and spit it out into his flame, and it was so well thought out, and I loved that. And then it just felt that she didn't go anywhere, and she does. So what Baba Yaga said, say the words, and she says the words, and she says basically I don't have it exactly written down, but it was clearly a invocation of Baba Yaga as this dark earth mother figure. Is the idea that now she has her magic back?
She has to. I think Baba Yaga told her she can only get her magic back if she takes it from Ciri.
Right. Yeah, she told her basically, here's how I can't give you your magic back. Here's how you can get it back. And so I don't think she fully took her up on her deal yet. It's that was okay, let's meet and look at the contract kind of.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, we'll think about this. And it seems like she's trying to do that, right? But I mean, I guess it's pretty clear, right? What's the last thing that happened?
They teleport through the portal that Ciri opens, and she's like Fox said, she's going to mom her through it. She's going to take over for a while with her training.
Yeah.
But I also, part of me thinks that in the end, she's not going to be able to. I'm like, come on, Yen, don't do it. I think Baba Yaga wants her to bring Ciri to her.
Right.
Is that?
I think she wants her to bring her to the monolith, right?
Is it the monolith?
I think so. But then, I mean, who knows where Baba Yaga is? The deathless mother. Oh no. To me, I feel like Yen is in the process of growing, but not in that sort of. She hasn't leveled up. She hasn't reached the sort of in terms of personal development. But she's trying to deal with not having her magic, basically, and being just a normal person, and but being I'm not a normal person, so
see these sparkly robes,
which just for a moment, can we just like hiding in a giant purple robe with Jaskier with his flamboyant like can we get some like
She doubled
gray
down on
or
it.
brown like
Because at least
like...
Sir Cheekbones was green.
Right, exactly.
But hers was still purple. But then with Jaskier, I'm like, look at these two idiots running around like
worst.
Christmas color, like purple and red.
Yeah.
You're both so frustrated by it, but also like I would feel like if they did just both adopt like just gray, brown rags, you'd be like, that's not right for those characters.
True.
Like
They don't care that much about not getting captured and killed. They need to look fabulous.
Yennefer is much more the focus, and she should be. But I do just need to say a few moments about Jaskier. Like he gets like I'm getting such good Taylor Swift vibes from him in terms of his like repeating the song again and again. That's clearly based on his old relationships, and like I love Taylor Swift, so I'm enjoying that. But also just like. Like the line about like, you know, Yennefer doesn't get to be the one who Geralt rescues. That's his job. Like he wants to be the damsel in distress. And I just thought it was such a brilliant like moment for him.
I laughed when he said that. I was like, oh, you got me, Jaskier.
And I really liked the way that they clearly have so much enmity towards each other, but they know each other well enough that when she comes in to try to rescue him, pretending to be drunk, like he immediately picks up on the game she's playing, you know, and plays right into it. And they had great like back and dynamic there that I really appreciated.
Yeah, me too.
Where did we leave him? I know she was going somewhere, but where did he go?
I think he didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
I think he's still there. Wait.
At the...
I don't know.
Wait a minute. I have it in my notes, I'm sure. Let me see. Yen. No, yeah, I think that's just kind of where we leave him.
Yeah.
Because she gets captured by the guards and then taken to Baba Yaga, and they get separated then.
Right. So he's basically still captured again, right? And
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
That sounds about right to me. So yeah,
Going forward.
So and as you said, like we do get the joint custody moment. Like now, Ciri's going to be with her for a while. I couldn't imagine a world in which. Go ahead.
I just want to intercede and say it was a little bit more of a kidnapping, I think, than like a joint custody sort of thing. You know, like.
Yeah, I don't think Ciri knows she's kidnapped.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way Geralt reacted was like she took her. Not like, oh, she'll be with her for a while. Cool. He was kind of like, oh yeah, you can teach her some. What the fuck? No.
I mean,
he's like, yeah, no.
Exactly.
I was too. I was like, what are you doing?
I'm gonna say he's more mad at her that she just like took her. So
having worked at a divorce attorney. Having worked for a divorce attorney for 2 years, that's not actually completely uncommon in the way custody arrangements wind up. But yes, no, I agree with you. It's not a... Geralt wasn't happily dropping her off and planning to have her back by the next weekend.
Right.
You know? So, anything else about Yen's story you want to talk about before we get into some of the other storylines that we get?
I mean, I personally think she's just clearly conflicted in terms of, like, she definitely wants her magic back, you know, but she also, I think, wants to be... sort of like this little family kind of, and I think she really does enjoy teaching, you know, like
I thought it was interesting.
I think that meant
when
something
they met
to
back
her,
up,
you know.
Geralt's like, hi, how are you? Still trying to have kids? Like, it was maybe the third question he asked her, but now wanting her magics back, like, knocked that one down.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
I think
wasn't there something
I think she's over it.
I feel I remember that she said something that kind of made it, that opened the door for him to ask that. Like she said something about how she was still looking for, you know, a cure.
Or she was still waiting to be healed, or was there to get healed.
Right.
Is that what that tower was? I was very confused about where they were. It was cool. Yeah. It's like a citadel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a temple.
I think it sounds right.
Yeah.
I think it sounds right.
It was cool.
Yeah. And I think also it was only a small part of her story, but I'm still really struck by in season 1 when she's assigned to protect this princess and they get attacked and like the princess is horrible, clearly. Like the princess is like, here, kill my baby, just let me live. So I don't feel bad about this. But, you know, at one point Yennefer just abandons her to try and get away herself. And then comes back to try to save the baby specifically. And And I do think that with Ciri, we're going to get a repeat of that in some way. You know, that here again, she's supposed to be protecting someone. It may be actually that not only is it safer for her to get away, but that she could actually benefit greatly by giving Ciri up to Baba Yaga or whatever it's going to be. And so she's going to be able to face a similar choice, but now do something, you know, now do the more noble, like, I'm going to protect this person, not try to get my own benefit here.
Right. Yeah, I think she'll have the hero turn at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to just go through the same shit over and over again with her.
Right. So I want to turn to Geralt's story, but we can start with kind of something about Yen, because we basically get the meeting of the Yen's exes society, which I really appreciate.
So
between,
funny.
like, Geralt and I want to call him Isiliador, which is wrong. But
Isiliador, that's so Lord of the Rings of you.
Oh, it is very much. What is it? It's something with an I. His name's Istred, not Isiliador. But yeah, I really like their dynamic, especially because it could have fallen into a lot of really bad tropes of the two of them, just like either constantly like griping to each other about how awful she was to them, or this one-upsmanship of like, well, I treated her better. And I felt like there was a little bit of that. Like, they acknowledged that. They kind of were a little tense with each other, but also had some shared history. And then they just moved on to like the whole monolith quest. And I found it really enjoyable, like the little bit they gave us, but happy they didn't go deeper.
Yeah, I agree.
And so what was your take on what we learned about the monoliths now?
So they're not conduits, they're beacons? Is that what I'm supposed to believe?
I'm pretty sure we don't know anything yet. Like, I don't know. Like, they told us, like, yeah, right? Like,
those little people, those out of the 5 new characters that we got in the last 2 episodes.
All the new characters. So many new characters.
The lawyer and his associate. I don't know. I'm just gonna call them Nelson and Murdoch. So Foggy and Matt were figuring that out in the library with Isgrid.
Oh, then yeah, Penn and Teller.
Yeah, they were. I actually like rewound that a couple times. We can go
We'll
with Penn and Teller.
just choose random different pairs of people. Siegfried and Roy are there in the bookstore.
So when Siegfried was going through the books, she was like, you know, they're not. It was it was translated wrong, and it wasn't that they were conduits. It's that they were like sending out a beacon.
Right.
To bring forward new monsters, and they were all coming because of Ciri. Right. That sounds right. In a bow.
It definitely got very confusing.
What I think they were trying to say.
You know, I've made this comment before. I really enjoy stories. I think when there's stories where there's something about the science or the magic and the technical details of it matter, I like it most when you don't ask me to care. You know, like when it's just like, so many gigawatts are needed to make the flux capacitor go. Don't try to understand it. Here's just the language we're using. Let's tell a story about it. But once we and so if it's kind of like, monoliths were protecting the world from monsters, monoliths are breaking, monsters are coming back. Cool. And clearly that's connected to Ciri some way, and I'm into that. And I felt like we did learn a lot of interesting stuff about the history and like this whole thing. There was one great set of lines that I wanted to remember, where it was. Oh yeah, mages weaponized monsters, fucking idiots. Mages weaponized men, thus creating the Witchers. And like, so I really appreciated that. I think there's going to be something about Ciri and her blood, I think, and the creation of the monoliths. But yeah, once we got into all these technical details about the monoliths, I kind of checked out. I was like, this is not a fun kind of story to tell.
Yeah. It's like, you had to bring these 2 characters in to try to easily talk us through something that you want us to know. That's very complicated. And then that's why they were like, A, B, and C means this. And we just know everything because we know things. And I'm like, oh, so you're here to help me. And I still don't know what you guys are talking about. But like, it is funny that they felt the need to put, and that one guy is a very famous actor. I love him in everything, and I don't know his name. The guy who played, I don't know their name.
Yeah.
Siegfried. Yeah. Romy, not Michelle.
Right. To me, so like in terms of that type of story, I can enjoy a story that does something like what you're saying, Matthew. But in a show like this, where they basically don't ask us to think about or care about the meaning of these things for like 9 out of 10 episodes. And then they kind of gradually, they just have like a couple references here and there. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to try to like just force feed you all of this information and theory or whatever. I feel like that doesn't work well. I feel like you have to be telling that story from the beginning. And you have to kind of like let us know, look, this is the type of story this is going to be, or this is going to be an important thing here. And it felt sort of like they were kind of like, oh yeah, monoliths, like she split the thing, okay, whatever. But like, and they're like, now here's all this big revelation. It's like, you haven't gotten me to care about it enough before. You know, if we were telling more of Istrid's story, right, where, because he was really into the monoliths. And if he had been talking about theories in episode like 2 and 6, and then like episode 1 and 3 of this season or something, like they could have maybe worked it in a way that felt like we were prepared to like have this revelation like be meaningful. But here it's like, okay, I don't really care if they're beacons or they're conduits or whatever. Like you didn't make me care about that early enough. Like now you're just trying to dump it all on me at once, and it feels like, you know, and also it all has to kind of make sense in a way. You know, like when you start talking about things that in your setting are like technical terms or whatever, like there has to be some internal logic, and you have to give us the tools to understand that, as opposed to being like, okay, here's everything that's happening.
Jeff Randall recently made the mistake of telling me that he's been reading through all the books, which means that he has now volunteered to be on a episode to like go over this and talk about the book questions we have. But one of my questions is, I wonder if this is an issue that's discussed at much greater length in the books, and so they wanted to kind of play some lip service to it here. Which I get the desire for, but I think as someone, you need to make a show that still makes sense to the people who haven't read the books, and I just think that there's a lot of love, don't worry, but like that one detail just really fell flat.
That's the challenge of like making a series from books, I guess, makes sense, right? Trying to make a movie out of a novel, I think, is generally a disaster. I think you need a series out of a novel, and short stories make great movies. And like here, you know, there's a lot of short stories in this world, and I feel like they're kind of, I don't know all the stories, but from just reading about it, it seems like they've got some episodes that are based on a short stories. Like this short story is the inspiration for this short story is the inspiration for that, and then they're trying to work some of the novel stuff in as well, and it feels like maybe trying to synthesize all this stuff into one series is, I mean, it just sounds like a hell of a challenge in the first place, and like maybe they're not, you know, hitting a home run with that.
Yeah, we got so much information the last 2 episodes.
Yeah,
just about like backstory, like Ciri and all her stuff, and the Witchers and all their stuff, and their really gross needles that I don't understand why they have to have 6 prongs, but whatever. But yeah, it just felt like a whole lot at once.
We were joking about, like, I think that's gonna be one of the challenges of covering these 2 episodes, is that like we're not just we can't do plot summary on this. There's so much that happened. It's more just like, let's see what we can discuss. But so anyway, while the Yen X Club is off doing their monolith adventures, Ciri is back, and this was one of my favorite storylines. What do you all think of the way it emerged with Ciri? You know, Vesemir wanting to take her blood, and her saying like, that price of that is that I get to become a Witcher.
Yeah, I mean, if I was her age, I would see it that way too. You know. It was like, it's the honorable thing. Plus, she wants to be more than she is. She wants to be able to run with all them. And she's what, 14?
Yeah, she's like
15?
13 or 14. There's one line where she says, "I'm not a girl," you know, and I think that's true-ish. You know, it's like I think I've heard her referred to as like a very young girl or whatever, which definitely has always struck me as like, that's not quite it. Like, she's either a very young woman or a very old child. But like, really, she's a teen, which is in between, and that's just a thing, right? And in that world, like, you could look at our world and be like, oh, kids grow up so fast these days. Yeah, in some ways, but like, they're not necessarily, I mean, some are, but most of the kids that people are talking about when they say that aren't literally running for their lives and, you know, learning magic and learning, you
Yeah.
know, sword fighting and falling off of things and getting attacked by monsters all the time. So, I mean, some people
Right.
are, and they grow up really fast in that regard, but it's like, it's a different life there, you know, and so, like, yeah, it seems like a reasonable demand to me, and, like, as Vesemir, like, I think, yeah, if that's what she wants, that's what she wants, you know. Depending on how you think about these things, you could be like, well, let's wait for Geralt to get back first. That maybe is that's not the worst idea.
Yep.
On the other hand, like, I don't know, I respect her agency. Like, I think a 13-year-old should be able to make a lot of decisions that in our world people don't think 13-year-olds should be able to make. And I don't think they're necessarily going to make great ones, but, you know, neither do
Right. Live and
older
learn,
adults.
kid.
Right, exactly.
You're a Witcher now.
Having said that, like, she already has her blood. So her blood coming out of her and then making something and going back into her, like, I don't know. Is that really necessary?
I think that was part of the point, was that in part because she's been, like, locked away from so much of knowledge of herself and her powers, but also because, like, she's been frustrated by the power that she actually has. She kind of wants to be this different thing,
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
and, like, Triss is there to be like, what do you mean be a witcher? You could be a wizard. You could be
Right.
even more than a wizard. You could be, like, you know, Blood Mage 3000, like, whatever the hell it is they're building it to be. And I feel like it's like, well, but being a witcher is something I can look at, I can name, I can touch. And I love the way that played out. Again, I don't know why, but it's been such a big deal to me when shows don't fall into tropes. Like, this could have so easily been Vesemir wants to kill her to get the blood,
Sure.
and she has to get away.
Yeah.
We didn't have
I'm
any
so
of
glad
that.
it wasn't that.
We had Vesemir really respecting her agency and trying to talk her out of it, but then being willing to go with it. And it left me like, I get the why, but I was kind of disappointed that Geralt just shut it all down when he came back and then insisted they leave. You know? That again felt to me a bit contrived. It felt like we need a way to get them out of this castle, so let's just have him be upset about that.
Yeah. I did like him in that scene, though, because he's like, you know, you're amazing, you're enough. Like, I'm like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and, you know.
Yeah, I loved...
It would have been painful. Like, it didn't look like it was going to be very fun.
I mean, he knows that, like, 19 out of 20 of them, like, die from it, you know? And I did find his words very touching. Like, you're enough, you're extraordinary. Like, you don't need this other thing, you know? Then again, like, dual classing is very attractive, right? Like, you get this set of this class's skills, and you're gonna, I mean, maybe she could still multi-class. I don't know how it works with humans in this world, if it's like D&D, where you know, but, like, it's
too much at this point.
Yeah, I do really appreciate it, like, not going into just, like, super tropish land where I was really concerned they're just gonna be like, ha, we can make more witchers, like,
exactly.
And they're like, oh, we can make more witchers, but we actually have a real dilemma here, and we need to talk to her about it, and blah 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 blah, and I that part kind of counterbalanced the. Oh, I guess that was episode 5, right? And then episode 6 was the one where they off-roach. And so episode 5, I think I mostly liked. The thing at the end where I loved what Geralt was saying to her, but, like, I don't love him being like, it's not your choice. I'm basically just going to take you. And it's like, you know, you've been looking over for what, like a month? Maybe a few months? Like, you know, maybe you're a little bit overstepping your, you know, but I get it.
One thing I will say that is, because again, they set this up in a way that no one is right, you know? And because I think she should have the agency. One thing that made me think maybe she doesn't quite understand what she's doing, maybe this is just bad writing, but I think it's meant to show that she doesn't really understand it, is she says, in terms of why she wants to be a witcher, I've destroyed so many things, please just let me heal something once.
It's like,
I get what she means, but witcher and healing, not like it to me. It's that she has this very romanticized idea of like they're there to help,
right?
But we've seen from him so much like, no, you're there to kill.
Yeah.
Some people might be helped by what you kill, but you are destroying things.
You're not a healer. You might be a protector through violence by destroying something else, but. You know,
that's why he's right. She doesn't even know what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe she should have hung out there and learned healing from Triss, and then she could have fucking saved Roach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been nice.
Always start with the healing spells. Come on.
So I'm so confused what we're Dark Phoenixing with her, because Because now she's the one, right?
She's the one.
She's an elf. She's the one. She's gonna bring, chaos and ruin to everybody. Yeah. She's a mage. She's a princess. Yeah. Am I missing anything?
No, that's pretty much, orphans generally, that's part of the whole Dark Phoenix-y thing.
TBD, Witcher, Elder Blood, whatever that means.
Right. Well, yeah, so because the next thing that happens for both of them is they go to this temple, which, to me, there's a whole fun thing with Geralt I want to get onto about, it's kind of a mirror of the custody thing with Yen.
First they get Roach killed, then they walk to the temple.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so what? And then she goes on this kind of like dark journey of the soul.
Well, there's the thing with Triss first.
She does that in episode 5
that was with Triss. And that's where Triss is like, she's going to fuck everything up. She's the child of chaos.
Triss, are you going to tell anybody?
Yeah, that moment I felt like Triss would be the last one to blame, to like be angry at Ciri for being something that she has no control over.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that felt a little weird to me.
I think that she's so like traumatized by fire because was there a lot of fire in that?
Yeah, she got all scarred up, right?
Yeah, I don't know whether that's what we were supposed to think, but yeah, she didn't tell Vesemir. She didn't wait for Geralt to tell him because that's obviously the first thing you would do. I think she goes and tells Tissaia, but like, why are you telling her?
Yeah, that didn't all line up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
that was a great scene.
It really was. Like, I'm very curious. It's in that place. It's almost hard to talk about right now because so much of this is just the building anticipation of big reveals, and we don't know what they're going to reveal yet. Switching back to Geralt's story, I don't know if this was intentional, but I saw a fun parallel here. Like we said, like Ciri is now off with Yen, like, the adoptive mom instead of the adoptive dad. Meanwhile, we've had Geralt be with Vesemir, who clearly was like this father figure who raised him for a while, and then goes to this temple with like this mother figure who raised him for a long time. And like,
I love her.
I love her. I love that. But do you think that was intentional, that we were kind of seeing that like Geralt had kind of like an adoptive mom who took custody of him for a while with the Yennefer thing, or is that just a weird coincidence?
No, I think so. And
I don't believe in coincidence when writers are involved. Like
that's fair.
I think it's very clearly like supposed to be that kind of parallel,
Mm-hmm. That's probably true.
And then she also she knew that Ciri was this like dangerous child, right? She had I forget how she knew, but like. So her name, the temple is Nanika, and her name is Nenika. And I do love that, like, she's presented very much as kind of like a Buddhist monk type, like, very serene, very like, come here and stare into the water and trim the trees and everything will be peaceful. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things she said is, I don't see any side on which you're not entirely fucked. Yeah.
Which is just such a like nice, like, nope, this isn't quite the character you think you are, and that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, she still felt a little sort of magical, tropish person to me.
Fair.
But
look at where they were.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But the whole like, I don't see any side on which you are not entirely fucked was a somewhat trope subverting thing, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Is there anything else on Geralt's story with her? Or Geralt's story or Ciri's story? Because it's funny. The first couple episodes, we can kind of sum everything up with those two. Now the party is splitting. There's more side stories emerging, and there's more characters being introduced.
We got to talk about Riance and Lydia, the guy who's after Ciri, and who I don't know who. That's my only thing with her storyline.
Yeah,
Firefinger.
Yeah, like, do we need more characters? Like, do we really, really need more characters? I feel like Nenika's story really gets interrupted. Like, we don't get everything that we could out of her story, kind of, because we end up doing, Fireboy and Firefucker. What was is that what he's called?
Firefucker. Yeah.
And friends.
I was like, thank you, because I do not care to know his name.
And then I'm like, oh, he's not dead, or is he dead? What happened? What was the last? Did he run away, or did he portal away, or something?
He got fireballed in the face, but I think he was the part of the group that wound up robbing the Witcher castle, and so he now has the Witcher blood.
Right.
Yeah, he got the blood. So he was trying to melt the door to get to Yen and Ciri, and then Geralt threw a sword at him, and he pivoted and then went through his own portal.
Okay, so he portaled off.
I do like the fire chaos stuff,
the fire
though.
looks
Like
cool.
him controlling it. I was like, cool. That end fight was awesome.
Yeah, that was
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. Yeah, and then we also get a lot more of the politics, and I know this is generally the thing that I'm more into than the two of you, but I'm curious how you thought of what we're seeing in Zentria, where we're kind of seeing, like, now that Cahill is back, like, Nilfgaard is clearly not the sort of, like, roses and glory non-imperialists we thought. Like, the racism towards the elves is coming back, a lot of the tensions between the two sides, and we're getting this interesting story of Fringilla is kind of being reduced to being second in command again, and Francesca and the elves are encouraging her to take over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't trust the elves, especially not Francesca, but I do feel like we saw Fringilla start to make a better character turn from where she was at the end of the first season, seeing that Nilfgaard's not good, and I think she's going to try to help them towards the end, but I don't know. Now they said that the golden god or whatever's coming, the white flame. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always knew that Nilfgaard were imperialists, right? And that they were horrible,
Right.
but that by allying with the elves, they kind of painted themselves as being, the good guys by, they overthrew, like, empires overthrow empires, right? Or fight against one another. And that's basically what was, what's been going on here. And it's like, oh, we're not them. We're not the ones who genocided you. We're the ones who are gonna genocide you later, but let's not talk about that now. For now, we'll be friends as long as you're useful to us. And then as soon as they're not as useful to them, because they're like, you know what, maybe we don't want to fight. Like, as soon as that's the case, like, then they're like, okay, well, we don't have any use for you anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I find the Zentria sort of politics much more interesting than the Aretuza politics. Like, in Aretuza, I kind of feel like I don't even really know what anybody really wants. Like, they just, I guess, want power or to protect their asses or whatever. And some of them seem like their allies are totally just of convenience. Whereas in Nilfgaard and Zentria and, like the elves, and I feel like they all, not so much Fringilla. Well, no, I feel like they all have some sort of motivation that's not just power.
Yeah.
And Fringilla, I think, starts from this very self-preserving sort of cover her ass kind of position, and I think she becomes genuinely friends with Francesca. And that doesn't...
Yeah, I like their dynamic.
Yeah, me too. And that doesn't, like, remove the sort of manipulative, try to look out for yourself, aspects of Fringilla's personality and where she's coming from. I mean, she was brought up in the mage society, right? Her uncle is a mage or something, right? So she's probably had that, like, around her whole life. But, like, it's sort of, I feel like the situation with Francesca kind of shows her that something else might be possible. So, so I think she's one of the more interesting characters, and seeing where she and Francesca and the elves and where they all kind of go. And Cahir is Sir Cheekbones. He's like got this very...
I was like, who's Cahir? You guys keep saying that like I should know who we're talking. Oh.
Right. That was just to clarify. I think he's also got this somewhat complicated, like, he seems like a true believer of the White Flame, right? But then he kind of had to come back a little bit in disgrace, and then now he's kind of sort of trying to cover his ass, but also like he's kind of trying to maneuver, but he's not so much a maneuverer. Like he's he's a general, right, or a whatever they called him, a commander of the military.
Yeah, he kind of he's older, but he reminds me somewhat of Draco Malfoy, in that he has this like he knows what he thinks is like who are his lessers and who are the people who are his equals. And he has no concept of the idea that, like, if you treat people like garbage, they're not going to be good to you.
Right.
You know?
I like to call them whiny little bitches.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a very fair description. And going to what you're saying, Paul, I think Frangilla, and going to what you're saying, Paul, I really like Frangilla because in many ways, to me, her and Yen feel very similar. You know, they both had this incredibly traumatic situation. They responded to it in different ways, but I have trouble thinking of Frangilla as like a totally evil baddie when Yennefer I'm forgiving for so many things because I know how traumatic her backstory is. And so, yeah, I like the idea of all these different people who've been touched by Arethusa in these awful ways, all finding their paths and maybe to some extent all finding their way towards each other.
And after Sir Cheekbones had mentioned that the White Flame was coming, she heard Baba Yaga's voice. So are we supposed to think that she didn't take the deal with Baba Yaga yet?
Who? Yennefer or Frangilla?
Frangilla. Yeah, she hears like Baba Yaga, kind of the way that Yen does.
I think Frangilla and Francesca were just like, yep, show me the dotted line. But there's like ongoing communication in terms of of what. But, that's my interpretation of a not very explicit,
Okay. Because that also goes to the last big thing I want to talk about, which is the baby ex machina. We have this baby born, and I think the implication is supposed to be that it's because of something in the deal with Baba Yaga that allowed Frangilla to do the magic or whatever it is that now elf babies can live. But I was left wondering if it actually is connected in some way to the monoliths, and that in some ways, because of all the way the elves have been tied up with the magic, was it something like that whatever happened to build the monoliths was what was stopping elves from having babies, and so now that that's broken, something's wide open again. I don't know, and I don't know if the show is supposed to think it's wide open, or is there something I was missing there?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the baby thing is very clearly the the deathless mother thing, but there certainly could be some connection to the monoliths. It feels like it's all connected, but like how? I don't know. Will we know by the end of the season? I don't know. But like, maybe. I mean, if they're planning on a season 3, probably not. Like, probably just more questions.
Oh no, I feel like they're
definitely planning on a season 3. Yeah. So, I would not expect to get a super clear explanation of everything that's going on. But yeah, the baby definitely seems to be to me it seems like the deathless mother manipulating Francesca, right? Like she just wants to get her to do what she wants her to do.
Because that baby didn't sound very alive, and then Frangilla didn't use any magic to make the baby start crying.
Supposedly.
I'm like, something's going on here.
Right.
And Francesca is encouraged, like she wants Frangilla to just take over and kick out Mr. Cheekbone.
Oh yeah,
Sir Cheekbone.
Girl power.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
So, yeah, a lot to do there.
And I guess that dude is the father. We didn't have that really confirmed until the baby was born, I thought. Blondie?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely Philavandrel, right?
Philavandrel.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it sounds like a music venue.
It sounds like philandering to me, but...
Yeah.
Well, it's also just why Francesca... I remember when I suggested, I was like, it's something like Francesca, but of course it can't be that. And they were like, oh, wait, no, it is.
You were 100% right.
Yeah, Francesca and Philavandrel.
Because it's that, like...
Frangilla.
It's always, and granted, Francesca's not the most common name, especially to us in the United States, but it's a quite common name in Italy or places like that. Well, and having all these names that feel so for D&D world, and then just every now and then someone's named Bob. It just always feels kind of jarring.
I was gonna say Bob. It's like, and here is Jaskier and Bob on bass.
Yeah.
Although I will say that they're Polish and not the books, right? Yeah. And so Francesca maybe sounds more exotic, like it's from the south of Europe, from
that sounds
Italy,
very Italy.
right? So that does, I think, sound very foreign. If you're Polish, maybe more so than if you're from the United States, and you're like, well, like there's a lot of
Yennefer is clearly an Eastern European version of Jennifer.
It's
like,
not.
There's really
No, it's Ashley. Didn't you give us this information?
We did. Did we look that up?
Yeah,
Did
we
get
looked
the
this
clue?
up. It's actually specifically a name. Oh, I mean, it can be, I think, but it's no. There's okay. I'm gonna look this up again.
Mm-hmm.
That was my assumption, but
it means white. It's often derived from a the first thing I found is that it's often derived from the Welsh name Gwynfar, which is part of the derivation of Guinevere.
right.
And my understanding is that Jennifer is a derivation of Guinevere.
It means white fairy.
Yeah. White Phantom.
Is that what yours says?
Yeah, White Fairy, White Phantom.
Oh, maybe it is.
The name of Yennefer is somewhat poised version of the name Jennifer, which
There was-
is the Polish pronunciation is Yennefer. So you say Jennifer in Polish as Yennefer.
Yeah.
I thought you sent us something that was like showed some other etymology. I'm gonna have to dig this up.
We're sending Paul on a mission.
No, Paul is sending himself on a mission. Thank you very much.
Okay. There you go. All right. Well,
One does not simply send Paul on mission.
I have one last little thing to comment on. Any other kind of big stuff on these topics that we wanted to get into?
I'm really over that guy snapping all the time. If he could stop doing that, I'd be very happy.
That's legit.
I think I pretty much covered whatever I have to say.
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say that old couple that was like helping them get answers. I got such like Billy Crystal and the wife from the Princess Bride.
It'll take a
Never-
miracle.
Yeah.
They even have
So-
like that couple in like the Neverending Story. They live at that little hut.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll just summarize by saying I've liked each 2 episodes less than the prior 2 episodes. So the series began with like, I have no complaints. Like, I have significant complaints.
We got pretty far before we started to have significant.
Yeah.
you know,
The first
yeah.
half, it was mild complaints. It was like very
Light complaining.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Then like I like it. And it's like now I've got some significant complaints. I'm prepared for the last 2 episodes to absolutely hate them, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think I've liked them all. Like I hated the roach thing, and I got confused by some parts of this, but overall I've liked it. But we're getting to a point where there's so many balls up in the air that I'm curious how they're going to resolve all of them. And granted, they have 2, not
A lot
one,
of balls.
but
So
yes,
many
that too.
balls.
But that's a different version of the Gerald story. But and maybe it's in part somewhat a lot of shows, but especially Disney Plus has kind of made me a bit jaded of like, we're always going to get to a show and then the last episode is not going to be as satisfactory of like wrapping everything up. And I'm nervous about that going into these last 2, but I'm hopeful. We may get something good. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite last episode of a TV series ever almost was season 2 of Mandalorian. So, Disney Plus can do it. Oh wait, this is Netflix.
That's true.
Yeah, Netflix. They can do it
It's
too.
Netflix. They can do it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm not bracing for impact.
So I guess the last thing I have is that they were trying to say that Ciri was a weapon built by the elves to destroy man.
Oh yeah. Is
that what? And all I could hear is that they translated it wrong by Laura Dern.
Right.
I'm sure that's not.
Yeah. That she's a weapon, not a. What was the other word there?
She was a weapon built by the elves to destroy man.
Right.
And they built a warrior, and it's mistranslated by Laura Dern. So it's not warrior, it's weapon.
Right.
That was the mistranslating by Bert and Ernie.
Right.
Okay. So it's weapon. It is weapon. It's not warrior.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
That was all I got.
Yeah, I mean, and if she's there to destroy man, I say go for it.
Do it, girl. Yeah.
Get it done.
All right. Well, thank you both as always. This is a great conversation. We'll figure out a time when we're going to watch the last 2 and then record on those as well. As I'm recording this, it is the 27th of December. Hopefully this should be up by tomorrow morning, the 28th, if not sooner. And it's important to know that because by the 29th, the Book of Boba Fett will be coming out, the first episode. Ashley and I, and possibly Paul, will be recording on that at 6 p.m. Eastern on the 29th to make sure we get you coverage the day it comes out. So if you see it before then and you want to give us some feedback on the episode, you want to ask questions, tell us what you thought for us to discuss on air, definitely send in an email to theethicalpanda@gmail.com, theethicalpanda@gmail.com, all one word. And of course, you can find all the great stuff about this podcast and all the other podcasts that I'm a part of at theethicalpanda@gmail. You can find great information about this podcast and the other podcasts that I help to put together, and as well as all of our contact information at theethicalpanda.com. That's a great way to find our Facebook, our Twitter. If you want to send thoughts on this episode we just talked about for The Witcher or anything else, we would love to hear you. So definitely check all that stuff out. And for the two of you, Paul, where can people find what you're doing these days?
Zen Badman, blah, blah, blah. That's...
Yeah, and I'm with what you said, so you covered me.
Awesome. Yeah. Ashley, definitely check out on the MCU cast, on pretty much everywhere on Stranded Panda Podcast Network. So on behalf of myself, Ashley, Paul, thank you all so much and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.